What was life like at home?
Good. I've always felt like very lucky because actually my biological dad left when I was like, I don't think it was before I was born, and someone else stepped in. My dad now, big Italian bloke, the Don, and like kind of stepped in. So that I've always felt very, very lucky in that sense. But yeah, it's had like there's always, bits where it's like, what I've always been told, you're so lucky, you're so lucky. So that's kind of the thing for me.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have a really good relationship with your stepdad.
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Do you ever think about your biological dad?
No, I did when I was younger, I think. And I think like I don't know if this is something that other people have gone through too, but it's like you almost have to, like I never speak about it in the sense of I wouldn't want to upset him because he would, take offense to any, even me kind of worrying about it in that sense, or like, I would never want to hurt his feelings after everything he's done for us, So I think there was a time probably when I was like, you're starting to become an adult and you're starting to question things. And, I think, you look back, and I've had like therapy and stuff as well. And it's like, you actually realize it has more of an impact than you think, in terms of like abandonment and that kind of thing. But I think you have to understand that that's okay to have those feelings as well.
Yeah.
Like it's actually quite normal and natural. But I think it's quite hard for people, men especially, to like talk about that thing.
Yeah. What was happening in your life at the time where you felt like you needed therapy?
I think I've got into a situation where I just wasn't happy. I was like anxious at things, like in general, just in person. And like I've had different stages of my life. And I think I just started to feel really anxious in like public settings, and whether it's at the football or at a gig. And like, I just wanted to get into that and why. And I think there was probably something in there that like let me realize that there's something that I kind of wanted to find out what it was. And I think it was linked to what I talked about there with like the kind of abandonment issues and stuff like that. So yeah, that's something that I think more people should do, like look into themselves. I think it's very easy to like block ourselves off and entrench ourselves and be like, this is who I am, where I think if you look into things and look into your childhood especially, there's a lot there. There's a lot there to explain your life, your personality, all sorts of things.
Yeah. I mean, how would you say you are now?
I feel good. I'm still like generally anxious sometimes, but like I feel like I've got such a better understanding of like who I am and my responses to things. Like even in relationships, I used to be quite an anxious, attached person, where I think I'm more secure now. Like I'm a father, all that kind of thing. So I think looking into that, like why was I anxious, attached? It kind of makes sense, in terms of like you don't want people to leave when you were left as a child. Kind of links. Yeah. And you have those moments in therapy, and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, it makes sense. And knowing that, when you have feelings, because there's like, I think there's like two parts of your brain, right? There's kind of logical one, and there's the chimp kind of in the back of your mind. It's like making those impulsive decisions. And sometimes you can misinterpret them and think the chimp is who you are. Whereas really it's like, this is a reaction that I have based on something that happened to me. Pause. How do I actually want to react? So I think it's interesting. I think everyone should like look into themselves a little bit.
Did it ever surprise you that it hit you that much? Just simply because you never really had a relationship with your biological dad. You never really have any sort of memory of him. So did it kind of surprise you that it hit you that much, or were you kind of like, this makes sense?
No, it's more of it makes sense. I think it's one of those kind of things. Again, it's like when you're growing up and you can't really talk about things. You can't really talk about, you don't want to upset people. So naturally you actually close yourself off from that thing. So it's almost opening a door that you like realize was there the whole time, and you're like, So I do think it's more of that kind of thing than like a big realization. But I think this can happen to everyone as well. When you like link those parts together, it just makes sense.
Yeah. Would you say that you've always been somebody that's taken care of their mental health?
No, but I think there's more of a conversation, there's more of a dialogue now. I think it's easier. Social media's got good parts and bad parts, but this has helped. I think there's still a big thing with men, masculinity. Everyone's got their guard up in a way. And I think there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of like being vulnerable, especially as men.
Yeah. Is there any particular moment in your life where you had your guard up?
Probably more as a kid, probably still now in some way, you know, like there are times when naturally you have your guard up. I've always, you know, I've been quite anxious as a teenager. I had a lot of kind of stages and stuff, and you kind of look back and realize, you know, you think I had it was a pretty normal childhood, but when you look back, you're kind of like, actually, that was a bit of a tough moment, and that was a tough moment, and actually, you know, I used to have panic attacks at school, all that kind of thing. But I'd kind of blanked that out from my memory, and then you look back and you're like, yeah, it's actually not 100% like normal, is it? You know, I think it is, but it isn't. So yeah, I think growing up, it's been working out what that was. I always thought it was like to do with my weight and stuff. Like I lost a lot of weight around high school age and stuff, and I always fixed a lot of my value onto my appearance. So when I step away from that again, it's like, why are you doing this? It's a whole like people pleasing thing and an outward thing rather than an inward, I'm worthy, which I think that's a big thing I learned in therapy. Inward validation.
Yeah. Outside of therapy, what are some of the other things that you do to take care of yourself?
I try and stay in shape. I'm a dad now, so my key is like just being able to be like a good dad for my son. Again, it probably links back to what I mentioned earlier, but that's always been my thing. I just want to be a good dad, and I want to be able to go and kick a football around with him and like do anything he wants, that kind of thing. So that's almost my thing now. So that's kind of how I look after myself in a way. I still do stuff that I enjoy, like I'll go to the football or whatever.
Yeah.
But like I love being a dad.
What would you say being a dad has taught you?
It's not all about you, you know. It's just not. I think you know, you kind of go through life with a very. You can't. We're all just like the main character in our own story, right? But then you have a kid and you're no longer the main character. I think that's a big thing for me, and like everything's just about him now. Everything that I do, I just want to give him the best life that I can.